everybody, to the Seattle Sports Union podcast. I am Abraham DeWeese, back with that damn Dirty Duck Map page. And on the boards is Brian the Soulman Solak. But enough of those guys. Let's talk about one of our favorite people in the world from the FutureStarSeries.com, Joe Doyle. Welcome back, Joe, and I've got my beard this time.
Do you guys know do you guys know like 4 or 5 people for me to be one of your favorite people on earth?
No,
we know literally dozens of people.
Dozens.
We're in the double digits. Thank you very much.
What's how big of a bucket is your favorite people?
Don't worry, I say every week everybody's our favorite person. So we just wanted to kick it off on a nice. We're going to talk crap about you with the next guest next week.
Yeah, I was going to say you just kind of flew in the opposite direction. Now I don't feel special at all.
Oh.
Yeah,
just kidding.
Yeah, next week we're going to.
What's going on, man? I'm happy to be here.
Let's talk about the next guest, Joe, and not you. But no, I'm just kidding. We got to talk about you because baseball the season just ended. Texas Rangers are now your World Series champ, and this is perfect timing to get you on here and talk a little bit about the season. Talk about your expertise, prospects, and as well a little bit about the Mariners. Did you get a chance to take in the least rated World Series of all time as far as television ratings?
Yeah, and I watched every game. I will say, I feel like those numbers are a little bit unfair to the Diamondbacks and the Rangers because almost every single year the ratings have been lower than the last, and it's just because everyone's cutting the cord. Nobody has cable anymore, and so much of the postseason was on TBS and stuff. So I watched every game. I found it to be a really enjoyable series. Outside of the August and September doldrums, I mean, Texas was they were the best team in the American League this year for my money and the most complete team. So, I think they were a well-deserved winner.
Fantastic. And what a story the Arizona Diamondbacks are as well, especially with one local kid, Corbin Carell, the outfielder. Was he on your sites? I got to admit, up until the All-Star game, I hadn't heard of the guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been following Corbin since 2016 or 2017. Lakeside kid, if I remember correctly, he's a Lakeside kid.
Yep,
went and saw him a couple times live. Yeah, went and saw him a couple of times live as a high schooler, and always kind of blew my mind how much bat speed he had for how small he is. He's my size. I'm 5'9", 165 pounds. Like, he's not too much bigger than me, and he's just he's a crazy twitchy athlete. But no, I mean, I actually kind of a funny story. If I don't remember where he went in that draft. I think he went like 12th or 13th or 14th. He was on the top of the Mariners draft board from what I'd heard. So they were actually not going to take, I believe that was the George Kirby year. They were actually going to take Corbin Carroll if he was there, but he got snatched up pretty quick, and the rest is history, and George Kirby's a Mariner.
Yeah, he went 16th overall. Yeah, and the George Kirby draft, right? Yeah.
Just missed
That's unfortunate. It'd be nice to have in the outfield next to Julio right about now.
Yeah, but I mean, what does this rotation look like without Kirby? Seattle did really well.
Fair point.
Yeah, Seattle's gonna end up with one of the top 5 players from that class, and Carroll's probably a top 5 player from that class. So, if they ended up with someone much worse, sure, we're shaking our head, but they got an all-star. Can't be too upset.
Yeah, well, I mean, while we're talking about the draft, last time we spoke was the end of June. It was, I want to say about a week or so before the draft, maybe, thereabouts.
Sounds right.
What do you think of the Seattle Mariners 2023 draft class?
I love it.
You love it?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, you get 3 top 30 picks and all of the college bats that were going to, be an option for Seattle were off the board at 22. And so, I heard Colt Emerson was going to go in the top 12 hours before the draft, and another player fell into another team's lap, and it shuffled the cards a little bit, as it does at every draft.
Yeah.
and Emerson falls to 22. And, he looks like arguably the best high school player out of the draft right now. I'd say Walker Jenkins, who went like what, fifth, um, has a good argument to be made. But Colt Emerson probably opens up the 2024 season as a top 75 prospect in baseball. Maybe he might be top 50 for some sites, which is incredible. I mean, he's going to play the entire 2024 season as an 18-year-old. He just turned 18.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he's young. He's really young. And then you look at, I think Ty Pete is just full of tools. He's got a tremendously strong frame, and he was much better than I was expecting. I liked that pick. And then Johnny Farmello, if they can squeeze some consistency out of his swing, I think all three of these players have all-star potential. So, yeah, I mean, a really exciting draft and some interesting arms there on day 2 and day 3.
So Emerson's 18. What does his progress like? What is the standard for those people out there not familiar? What's the standard progress for somebody right out of high school versus someone right out of college through the minor leagues?
I mean, you basically shift it back 1 year. Like college guys are usually up 2 years after they're drafted. So think like if Seattle would have drafted a college guy in the first round, he probably is up in July or August or September of 2025. If it's a high schooler, you just shift it a year. So you're probably looking at a guy that's up toward the end of 2026. With Colt Emerson, specifically Emerson, not really Farmello or Ty Pete, he looks like he could be up with the college guys in late 2025. And he could be the future at third base for Seattle. So he just looks like a really, really advanced beyond his years type of a bat. I mean, the guy, what did he hit? 400 and OPS like 1100 this year. It's just unbelievable.
What do we expect to see at the Aqua Sox? Who do we expect to see at the Aqua Sox next year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do wonder a bit if they would even consider starting Colt Emerson in high A. I don't think they will. I think they're going to give him at least a few more weeks in Modesto. I don't think he needs it.
Okay.
But I think he probably starts in Modesto. Ty Pete and Johnny Farmello certainly will start in Modesto. I would imagine that Cole Young is probably going to see Arkansas almost immediately outside of the next year. So Everett's in kind of a weird spot. I think once you get to like the end of June and early July, Everett's going to be loaded with some of these 19-year-old prospects. But
nice.
You're going to see guys like the college guys that they took later in the draft. Like you're going to see Ben Williamson up there. You're going to see Brock Rodden up there. And they're going to have some really interesting arms. But I would expect most of these high school guys to start at least for a blip in the radar at Modesto.
Matt, you bummed out you're not going to see Cole Young at the Aqua Sox?
We did.
Right, but don't you want to see more of him?
No, he won't be back. We Brian and I discussed this. We knew we were seeing the last of him in the playoffs, and he's earned the promotion. He really
I would think that
impressed.
I would think Cole Young and Harry Ford both won't. I would be stunned if they're in Everett at the beginning of May. Put it that way.
They're not coming back. Harry Ford, okay.
Neither of them are coming back.
Maybe for a cup of coffee, but not long.
What about Michael Arroyo?
Arroyo's probably he's probably going to be in Everett pretty soon. I mean, he spent most of the year at Modesto. He's got his feet wet and he performed well. He struggled a little bit towards the end, but he's got his feet wet stateside, so he'll certainly see Everett this year. The guy that I'm interested in seeing how hard they push him is Lazaro Montez, right? I mean, what a monster. And the fact that he cleaned up his swing and miss so much in 2023 has me certainly convinced that he might be better than I was expecting. Because he did show so much swing and miss, I still think he sees at least a month of Modesto before he goes to Everett. But you kind of get my drift here. Like Arroyo, Emerson, Pete, Montez, Farmello. Like you're going to see a lot of really, really good exciting young prospects in Everett before the summer starts. So that's pretty cool.
And hopefully we don't lose them all like immediately to Arkansas like we did 2 years ago, or it was the tale of two halves. The first half of the season we had an amazing team with Julio, and then the second half it was like everyone got promoted, so
yeah,
we didn't really have much of an offense left or pitching.
Yeah, you didn't get very much Tyler Locklear up there, did you? Because
we did for the first until he got hurt.
Yeah, but that wasn't very long. He got hurt in like late May or early June.
I want to say early June. We got enough of him to be very impressed. He was the next guy I was going to ask you about. Is he for real? Should we expect big things from him? I was very impressed with the guy, and we interviewed him for Seattle Sports Union, and very nice guy. And I'm wondering, is he the future? Is he Ty France's replacement someday?
I think so. I mean, there's certainly, if Ty France struggles this year, Seattle's going to weigh all their options for first base. And if Locklear's tearing the cover off the ball in Arkansas, or maybe it's June 1st and they've tested him a little bit with Tacoma, I think he's going to be up pretty soon. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Kevin Youkilis, just like the way that he sets up at the plate. And I think he's probably a better hitter than he is a power hitter right now, but he's certainly got more power than Ty France. So I think he's going to get a shot in 2024. I don't know if he's the future at first base, but he's got a lot of good things going for him. He's very tooled up at the plate. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. He's a good hitter.
So, Joe, are you giving up on Evan White, the first baseman prospect?
You're asking me this question in 2023? I thought you'd ask this question in 2020.
Yeah.
I did. I was thinking, but I mean, like, he has the contract. How much longer before they decide to, let him go?
they might just shoot him to the moon now. And I mean that respectfully. Like, I think he's owed, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there was like 2 years at $12 million per year each towards the end of his deal. I think we might be getting close to that.
He's owed $7 million next year.
$7 million. I mean, nobody's going to pick him up if you get rid of him. I mean, you can just. I'll tell you one thing they're definitely going to do is they're certainly going to DFA him. I can't even remember if he's on the 40 man. They might have already DFA'd him, but I would be stunned if he's on the 40 man through the end of the winter. I would think they're going to DFA him. He'll end up a minor leaguer for Tacoma. And it's not that I've given up on him. I think you can have prospects that are 32 years old that you don't give up on. It's that I don't expect anything from him.
Okay.
He's still on the 60. He's on the 60-day DL, and he is on the 40 man.
When you're designated for assignment, that means
he won't be.
He's free to. He's free to sign elsewhere, right?
No. So if you DFA someone, another team can claim him so long as they keep him on the 40 man.
Okay.
But I don't know. I would be stunned, especially because there's been no sign that he's going to be fully healthy for spring training. Maybe he is. If he is, maybe it's a different story. But I would be stunned if another team elected to pay him $7 million as a lottery ticket, right? I mean, $7 million is a lot of money to claim a guy that you don't think is going to play. You don't know is going to play, and you don't want to be locked into that contract. So I'll tell you what's going to happen. And it's probably going to happen here in the next 5 days. Evan White is going to be DFA'd. He's going to clear waivers within 6 or 7 days, and he's going to be reassigned to the minor leagues. They still owe him his full contract, so he's still going to get paid his full contract. He'll just be a minor leaguer, and he will not be eligible to come up to the big leagues unless they made another roster move. So that's what's going to happen. There's no way. There's no way he's going to hold a 40-man spot going into spring training. There's no shot.
Yeah.
Going back in my brain, I think I remember there's something called Rule 5, and that's what he would be if he signed to another team.
Rule 5 is different.
Okay, what What's the difference?
Rule 5 is if you are a high school player that got drafted and you have not been added to the 40-man roster within 5 years of your draft date, you are what's called unprotected from the Rule 5 draft, which means another team can pick you up and give you a shot at their 40-man
Okay.
roster. You can also look at it from a college point of view. If a guy gets drafted, they have 4 years from the date that they're drafted out of college. And if they're not added to the 40-man roster, another team can claim them. So who was drafted in 2019? Actually, it would have been
George
2020.
Kirby.
Actually, it would have been 2020 because there was 2020, 2021, 2022, and the 2023 season. So any college guys that Seattle drafted in 2020, which would be, I mean, it was a shortened draft, so I don't really know. I mean, that was the Hancock draft. He's already on the 40-man. But you get my point. The point is
Yes.
Evan White was already added to the 40, and he was already provided a major league contract. So he doesn't.
Yeah.
It won't
Thanks
matter.
Thanks for that explanation, because a lot of people forget back in the back in the 70s, before then they had what's called the reserve clause, and baseball teams could just sit on a guy, and if they don't want to ever bring him up, they don't have to. So it's definitely one thing that's better about baseball nowadays.
Actually, now that I think about it, I don't even have to look it up. With the Rule 5 draft, Zach DeLoach was drafted in the second round in 2020. So if he's not added to the 40-man roster before November, I don't even know the date. I think it's November 8th, November 9th. Then another team can claim him, draft him in the Rule 5 draft. But the kicker is they have to keep him on the 40-man roster, on the active roster all year. And it's hard
The
to
drafting
imagine.
team, not the Mariners.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a team keeping Zach DeLoach on their Major League Baseball team for a full year. It's just, he hasn't played yet.
You want to get a great example of a past Mariner that we did that with? Do you remember Luis Ugueto?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
He was a Rule 5 pick. He had to be on our roster the whole year. We carried him the whole year, 2002.
Hey, if you're a terrible team, I can't believe Luis Ugueto survived 2002 with the Mariners. That was a good team.
I was there for his only home run. It was in Anaheim.
If you're a bad team and you don't have a 40-man crunch, you can sneak guys through all year on your active roster, especially like a utility shortstop or a hard throwing reliever. Like you can just kind of bury him. You can't bury a guy like Zach DeLoach. He offers nothing if he doesn't hit. So,
well, Joe, we had a big conversation about Teoscar Hernandez. I think you're the right guy to ask. We're talking about money with Evan White. If they offer Teoscar, Matt, what was the number you said?
20.5, I believe, is the projected number for a qualifying offer.
Ooh, I find that hard to stomach.
You think we should offer it to him?
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they won't, but I would be stunned if they did.
That's a lot of money.
The reward for offering someone a qualifying offer is a draft pick, and it's not a particularly lucrative draft pick. Like if Seattle were to offer Teoscar Hernandez a draft or a qualifying offer, he declines it, and someone signs him for, let's say, a $40 million deal. They would get like the 77th or 78th pick in the draft. I mean, it's not nothing, but the risk of having to pay Teoscar Hernandez $21 million when you're trying to reshape the chemistry of your lineup, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense for Seattle. So I anticipate they're going to let him walk.
You're hoping you're right. Need that $20 million towards someone.
Hey, I mean, look, at the end of the day,
who fits the roster better.
I don't think it's the end of the world if they did offer him the qualifying offer and he accepted it. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez wasn't awful this year. He wasn't worth 21 million or 20 million or whatever. But also you'd be going into, I mean, you pretty much lock yourself into 2024 with another lineup with that amount of strikeouts. I mean, that's not something that you want to do. So, hey, he's a fine player, but you can't have so many Teoscar. You can't have Suarez and Hernandez. So I think that's kind of the issue here.
Yeah, 400 strikeouts between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah,
He's a good player. He's just not maybe worth 20 million, and he's just not a fit for the roster. That's really what it comes down to.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think the 77th pick in the draft is worth the risk, personally. And I'm a draft
Last
guy, and I
time,
don't think it's worth it.
Joe, last time you were on the show, you told us about an East Asian baseball player drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays, Arjun Nimala.
Yeah.
Any word out of his progress?
Well, I mean, the crazy thing about Namala is he's way younger than Colt Emerson. I mean, he didn't turn 18 until I think this month. He played the entire, short season with Toronto there as a 17-year-old. He scuffled a little bit. He's going to be a project, but um, he went, 20th overall or whatever to Toronto. He showed some flashes. He's going to put on some weight. So nothing really to report there. But yeah, we'll have to track his story because it's an amazing story. He's just getting his feet wet though.
That's awesome.
Okay.
So he'll be in rookie league for a little while then.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's going to be I don't even know if he's going to be with the Toronto version of Modesto, like low A, to start the year. He might start the year at the complex level and then go to low A and I don't know, early May. There's just no rush. He's going to be 18 all year too.
I wanted to ask you about another young player, the Vanilla Missile, Walter Ford himself. Any idea when we might be able to see him coming up to Everett?
Yeah,
Brian and I are
struggled.
eager to interview him in person.
Yeah, in person. Yeah, I interviewed him in high school. He's a great kid. He's well spoken. He's hungry. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I think with Walter, he had some nagging injuries this year that slowed him down. It took him on and off the field a bit. It affected his velocity. It affected his pure stuff. And I think this is a big winner for him to just get stronger. He's still really young too. I think he just turned 19, so which is crazy.
Yeah, he was drafted
considering
17. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy to think he's been in the organization now for 2 seasons if you count his draft year, and he's still he's still going to be a teenager for all of 2024. So no, to answer your question, some bumps and bruises, some general soreness. Walter needs to put on weight. He needs to get stronger. And I think the stuff that we saw in high school will come back. His velocity was down, his stuff was down, but I think it'll come back with reps.
So maybe by the end of the year we might get a brief glimpse of him, or 2020.
He struggled at Modesto. I think they want to get some confidence back in him. I think you could see him in July.
Okay. Looking forward to that. Maybe I can buy some merch. He's already he's been selling for the when he was drafted he already had a website up selling Vanilla Missile merch.
It is a pretty epic nickname. Not bad.
It is. Yeah.
Did you guys ever figure out why he's called that?
He's white and he throws the ball really hard.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things that just makes sense and you don't really have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean.
Anyway, so Brian has a question for you. We have a long history here at Seattle Sports Union of interviewing the catchers for the Aqua Sox, and because Brian was a catcher in high school, and from what I understand, if he'd seen that car coming, and he wouldn't have ruined his knees, and he totally would have been a professional catcher and Hall of Famer. But
without question,
we always interview we always interview the catcher, and we have a history of interviewing the catcher, and then like a month later he gets traded. So this year I refused to let him interview Harry Ford. But he gave me a question. He wrote us some questions beforehand. He wants to know if we can get a nice haul for Harry Ford when we trade him.
Oh man, that's a tough question. I mean, catching prospects in the low minors are such a tough demographic to like throw value on. It just takes one team to kind of fall in love with the prospect. But here's where I'm at with Harry. He hasn't yet shown that he is a surefire catcher. And
Yeah,
he's also
I agree.
never played anywhere else on the field. So Seattle's kind of cornered themselves into a weird hole. Like, are you ever going to give him a shot at third base, at second base, at center field, left field? Like, are you going to give him the opportunity to show his versatility? I don't think they want to do that because I think they genuinely believe he can catch. And if he can catch, obviously his value is going to be sky high.
Yeah.
In terms of what they could get for him, I don't think they're in a huge rush to move him. I mean, I think the idea of platooning Cal Raleigh and Harry Ford is pretty exciting. But I just don't know if there's any teams out there. I'll put it this way. In today's baseball environment where there's not a lot of teams like looking for prospects, because with the added wild card, everyone thinks they have a shot. I mean, even even the Nationals right now are like, if things broke the right way, they weren't terrible this year.
Yep.
So even the Royals, I mean, the Royals they lost over 100 games, and they probably are sitting there like, oh, if Vinny Pasquantino and MJ Melendez come back and are better, maybe we're good. Like, there's just not a lot of teams looking to trade major league talent strictly for prospects. What I think is more likely is a team wants Bryce Miller, and they're looking to like if you were the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Pirates wanted Bryce Miller and Jared Kelnick and Harry Ford. Like, he's probably a secondary piece in a deal, but you're not going to see Harry Ford moved by himself, I don't think, for an impact bat.
I almost feel like
I could be wrong.
I almost feel like Cal Raleigh's the one that we would trade over Harry Ford. Um, I don't know if he signs another contract with this team.
I mean,
Being
maybe
a
not,
Scott
but
Boras client.
yeah,
And
but do you know how difficult it is to find a good catcher? Like, I mean, a good catcher. I mean, an impact catcher. Cal Raleigh is one of the top 5 or 6 catchers in the game, defensively and offensively. And you have him for 4 or 5 more years. I don't think there's any, and he's also the heartbeat. He and JP are the heartbeat of that team. I don't think there's any way they move Cal Raleigh, at least now,
no, not
for
now.
anything. Now,
Well-
could they move him in July of 2026? Yeah, but no shot they're moving him now. And by then, Harry Ford might be gone. So,
Are you saying there isn't a 54% chance we could move him?
yeah, I will say that the fact that everyone blew up on that, and it was such a dumb thing for Jerry to say out loud, but everyone also knew what he was trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
the Diamondbacks won
Yeah, no.
51. The Diamondbacks won 51% of their games this year. The
Well,
Rangers. The Rangers won 54.8. Like, what he's
Yeah.
trying to say. You just don't say it out loud.
Yeah, he phrased and represented himself poorly. That's really what I'm saying. Is like, I understand what he's saying. He just said it poorly. And I found out like the next day or day ago or whatever. Dusty Baker, he's going to be a Hall of Fame manager. He only won 54% of his games.
There's a
Oh my God! If you're a manager for your career and you win 54% of your games, you're
awesome.
You're going to go to the World Series. I mean, look at some of the teams that have won the World Series over the last few years. Like, the Atlanta Braves snuck into the playoffs as the wild card, and I think they won like 90 or 91 games that year. It's 54.5, 55%. The Royals won their World Series as the wild card. I think they won 88 or 89 games, 53.5%, 54%. The Diamondbacks go to the World Series, 51%. Like, I get it. I understand what he's trying to say, but he had to say it like, our goal every year is to win 110 games and win the World Series. But if we want to make this thing sustainable and win like 54% of our games over the course of 15 years, we're going to go to a few World Series. Like, you say it like that. You don't say our goal is to win 54% every year. It's like, damn, that is sad.
It's not just sad. It's kind of reckless for a president of a baseball team to state. And I think that's where people, including myself, get annoyed. Is he doesn't, in that moment, and I think still today he doesn't get it. That the fans want to hear. We're going to do everything that we can to
Yeah.
win next year.
I can tell you, I can tell you he gets it. I've
No,
spoken with
he
Jerry.
does.
I've spoken with Jerry twice since that. I know he gets it. And I know I don't need to apologize for Jerry, but I know he's remorseful for what he said. He is ashamed from what he said. He gets it. But the way his brain works is hyperdrive analytic.
Yeah.
And he tries to um Jerry tries to give evidence with his thought process through numbers in any chance that he can. He likes to make it known that he's the smartest guy in the room, even if he doesn't know that he's doing it. He's embarrassed though. He's remorseful about it. And yeah, for a guy that's generally really good at the PR shtick media side of things, he blew it. Totally blew it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, the average fan doesn't seem to realize that the most winning team of all time only won 60% of their games.
Yeah, but the average fan doesn't care either about the percentage.
Well, that was the Mariners in 2001. It was like a 60%.
I understand that, but the
fan
average
also
fan
doesn't
care about the
realize that
numbers.
the average fan also doesn't realize that 54% is 89 or 90 wins.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's not like that gets you in the playoffs probably 60% of the time, 90 wins. It didn't get them over the hump this year. But I think when you hear 54% out loud and you put it in like an NFL, like, oh, your goal is to go 9-8 every year. That's great.
Yeah.
When you think of it like that, or the NBA, oh, your goal is to win. I don't really do the NBA, but what was that, like 45 and 41 or something, 45 and 39? When you think of it like that, it doesn't make any sense. But when you say our goal is to win 90 games every year and give ourselves a shot, it's passable. But the way, I don't think Jerry could have possibly phrased his thought process any worse in that press conference. And then he's, adding on that the fans should thank us for taking this approach. Like, good Lord,
just digging that hole deeper.
Putting
Why was there
lipstick
nobody
on
there
shit.
to
Oh
put
my
some tape on
goodness.
his mouth?
Just a PR person runs in and tackles him from off screen.
Exactly. I think another big problem too, from a fan perspective, is he is the only voice we hear, and the ownership doesn't pipe up. And I mean, this is just kind of an anger at everything in a Mariner, with a Mariner logo from the fandom. It doesn't seem to be. It's odd because the fans take Cal Raleigh and JP Crawford's side over anything that management or ownership have to say, and that's not always true. Often the fans turn on the players, but not this time. And there's plenty more the players could have done this year.
I don't know if
the fans
know who to blame, because, like, who do you blame? Like, Julio was terrible. Julio was terrible in September, and there were some fans that were really upset about that. And Teo was awful in September, and there's fans that were really mad at Teo. Ownership hasn't spent for the last 6 years, and that's the real source. Mad about that. But Jerry also hasn't outright come out and said, like, hey, we are strapped to the resources that were provided. Like, he hasn't gone back on ownership. He always says, we have the support to do whatever we want. And if you're going to say that, which, I mean, that's what ownership requires him to say. But if you're going to say that, people look at you. So it's tough. Like, on one hand, Jerry's done a pretty good job with a $138 million payroll. But on the other hand, Tommy LaStella was the designated hitter this season. And both of those things, both of those things can be true. So, listen, I think we're just kind of getting to the point. I'm a guy that has never told people how to spend their own money. And that applies to it applies to billionaires for me too. Like, I'm not a bootlicker billionaire type of guy, but I do think John Stanton has the right to spend his money however he wants, just like fans have the right to spend their money at the ballpark and through tickets however they want. But all of that being said, if they don't spend this offseason, it doesn't seem like the organization and ownership is fully committed to winning. And I don't think you can totally put that on Jerry.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
But wasn't last year the year to get the free agents?
Oh, yeah.
It kind of, well, it was the year that they were supposedly going to open the wallet because, we're saving money now because we'll spend when the time is right and the window opens. Well, the window opened. And then, yeah, like you said, Tommy LaStella was our DH.
Yeah, I mean, they tried. They really did try. I've had a lot of conversations with people. They tried on Chris Bryant. They tried on Trevor Story. They tried on Marcus Semien. They had discussions about some other play. Like, they tried, and those players ultimately didn't want to come to Seattle. Or in the case of like Chris Bryant and Trevor Story, they were offered money that was outrageous
Ludicrous.
for the circumstances that they're in. And as you can tell, that money horribly spent. Those are terrible contracts. So,
How many games has Chris Bryant played since he signed that deal?
Dude, that's not even the biggest issue. Like, the biggest issue with the Chris Bryant deal, not only was he overpaid, but the guy had ground beef for a shoulder, and his body was just deteriorating. And Colorado elected in the biggest outfield in the world to put him in left field full time. He was always going to break down before he even got going. So that was an entire philosophical failure by Colorado. But that being
In 2
said,
seasons,
Seattle,
he's played 122 games.
and how many homers does he have? Like 12?
He's got 15.
Yeah, I mean, that's awful at Coors. And he's got 5 more years. So, no, but bringing it back, Seattle tried. It's not like they didn't try.
Absolutely.
I think they regret not going a little bit harder. And you guys have had Jason Churchill on the show. He and I agree.
Yes.
Nail. We agree entirely. Seattle failed to go get the rentals, the 2-year, the 3-year, the Mitch Hanigers, the Michael Confortos, the Justin Turners, the JD Martinez, the Mark Cannas. They failed in that market. And I don't think Seattle needs Matt Chapman or Shohei Ohtani or this guy or that guy. They need those 2-year players that can fill holes in a lineup. Sam Haggerty started so many games in left field this year. Why? Why was that not Mark Canna? Why was that not Michael Conforto? Why was that not, name your 2-year, $36 million guy? That's my issue with what the Seattle Mariners have done, and I think they have to rectify that this year.
Do you think they will?
That's been a problem since Willie Bloomquist. I liked Willie Bloomquist as a bench player, but why was he starting 400 games?
And it's the same thing with like Dylan Moore, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Abraham Toro. Like, there's been too many players within this organization that are labeled utility guys that are supposed to play 3 or 4 different positions. They're supposed to play twice a week. And you look at Fangraphs in September and they have 415 plate appearances. And you're like, what happened? Why is Sam Haggerty our platoon against left-handed pitching? In what universe? And there were no injuries, mind you. The Seattle Mariners did not get injured into a Sam Haggerty is the platoon against left-hand. They just didn't have another option. AJ Pollock failed. Pollock failed. Yeah, Pollock failed, and it was Haggerty. Yeah, and that is a problem. So,
what do you think? What do you think about first base? Do you think we should start looking for Ty France's replacement this offseason?
I think Seattle should probably. I think Seattle should be open to ideas. The idea that I love is, and there's not a lot of people that agree with me with this idea, but whatever, I don't care. The idea that I like is you sign one of these free agent pitchers, be it a Michael Wacha, be it a Yamamoto, I don't care who it is, Jordan Montgomery, and I think you trade Bryce Miller to the Baltimore Orioles for Heston Kjerstad and someone like, Joey Ortiz, Or maybe maybe you could do, I don't know what the package would look like, but if you could somehow pull Heston Kjerstad and Kobe Mayo, or Heston Kjerstad and Jordan Westberg from the Orioles for Bryce Miller, and they can add in a couple more pieces. That's the move that I like, because there's next to
That'd be
nothing.
Harry Ford's trade.
I don't think so, because they have Adley Rutschman.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, but so maybe it's Emerson I don't know. I really don't know. The point is, I think there's a deal to be made between the Orioles and the Mariners, between Bryce Miller and Heston Kjerstad. I know Heston Kjerstad isn't a proven player yet, but that is a left-handed hitting first baseman with serious impact potential, who Seattle's familiar with. They drafted him in the 37th round in 2019. So that's what I would do if you wanted to, take a shot on someone. And I think he immediately becomes your everyday first baseman against right-handed pitching.
Why do you like Bryce Miller as a trade token rather than Logan Gilbert?
I mean, you get 4 more years of Logan Gilbert. You get 4 more years of Logan Gilbert, and I think if you're looking at competing in 2024, it's hard to see a clear path to competing how you want to compete if it's Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and then Bryce Miller, Brian Wu. That's, to me, that is 2 really good arms, and then 2 guys that still have some question marks. And then after that, it's Emerson Hancock, it's Marco Gonzalez, it's waiting 3 months for Robbie Ray. It's I think you're just threading the needle a little bit there. And granted, you could get more and the offense would improve, but I think you keep the homegrown pitcher, and you keep, arguably one of the top 2 or 3 rotations in the American League, and you try to move one of these rookies that has some teams interested. I'll also say this. I also don't think, like, you could change my mind by showing me the trade that would happen, but like Logan Gilbert for, Nolan Gorman and Tommy Edman, and like, I don't know, like there's not a whole lot of trades that you could show me. Now, if you were to say Logan Gilbert for like Luis Robert and, something interesting there, I'm listening. But I just don't think there's many slam dunk trades.
Oh my God, I'd love Luis Robert.
Yeah, I would too, but there's not a lot of slam dunk deals involving Logan Gilbert that I would think Seattle is better because of it.
So, looking at the free agent market, and obviously, you have in your mind you want to make a big trade. But looking at the free agent market, there's one name that consistently catches my eye and makes me think. I'm wondering what your thoughts are regarding Jung-Hoo Lee from the Korean League, who's going to come over and be an outfielder for somebody, and would sign a major league contract. I guess he's eligible for a real contract. He wouldn't be the minor league situation, so you'd have to pay him. I'm curious if you know much about him, or you like the idea.
Yeah, he's gonna hit. He's definitely gonna hit. I like the idea of him. I probably don't love the contract that he's gonna end up getting, because it is a weaker free agent market. Like, someone's gonna pay him a lot of money. Keep in mind the KBO is like the equivalent to AA. So the guy might be hitting 320, 330, but I've seen a lot of players hit 320 at AA and be bad. So I say this: the fact that Ha-Seong Kim has been so good for the Padres is going to get this kid paid, and I don't know if I want to be the team that gives him the big contract. So I'll tell you what, I think I would rather try and put together a package to trade for Ha-Seong Kim, to be honest with you.
Okay, very cool. There was a question that Brian Solak wanted to ask you, and will you be teaming up with Jason Churchill on some podcasts coming up?
Yeah, we podcast every Thursday, or every other. What is it? It's every Thursday, sometimes Friday, for the FSS Plus podcast, and we talk all things baseball. We're going to be jumping into the off season right now, the hot stove. some different ideas. I mean, this last podcast last week, we talked about the idea for 20 minutes of what it would look like if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got traded from Toronto. So
what? Are you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, would that happen?
Listen,
No, it would never happen.
well, hold on. Let me give you the short version. Let me give you the short version.
Okay, all right.
So Vladimir Guerrero's got 2 years left on his deal. 2 years of control. He's going to make $55 million in those years. He's a bad first baseman. He's a bad base runner. He's gotten worse at the plate 2 years in a row. He was essentially what Mitch Haniger in 2022 was at the plate for Toronto. He was worth like 1.5 WAR. Toronto is in a position where they have got to figure out a way to pay for both Bo Bichette and Vlad. And I think they're going to ultimately move one. I think they have to move one. I don't think you can commit $65 million per year to Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero at the same time. So because of that, I think if there's an obvious one that's going to get moved, it's Vlad. Am I one winter early? Probably. But I think the possibility certainly exists.
It's an intriguing possibility. And yeah, I mean, if you trade him now, you'd have more value than a year from now.
And then I guess Bo plays shortstop, so you want to keep the defense, right?
Yeah, you keep the shortstop. You have to keep the shortstop. And Bo has only gotten better year after year. Homegrown. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question. If you're going to give $35 million a year to someone, or $32 million a year to someone, it's Bo. You don't give it to the first baseman. It's the same reason. It's the exact same reason. What's his name? Pete Alonso isn't going to get more than $25 million a year. He's a first baseman.
I'm cool with paying that.
Any chance Mariners could get Pete Alonso?
No, not at all. He's not coming to us. He's not going to be able to hit the home runs and the numbers that he does at T-Mobile.
That's why I'm in favor of going and trying to acquire Heston Kjerstad from the Orioles. He's left-handed. He's got 6 years of control. I mean, shoot, like, I know Seattle was burned once by trying and going and getting that left-handed hitting mashing first baseman in Justin Smoak. Smoak wasn't terrible, but I mean, that's the deal that I think you go make. It's the deal that I would try to go make.
Did the deal with Justin Smoak? I mean, on paper, that seemed like a good idea at the time. Are you saying that kind of just in retrospect, that wasn't the right right?
No, I think that was a great move.
Okay, I misunderstood you.
Did they trade a year and a half of Cliff Lee, or was it just a rental? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was a rental.
Was it just
Cliff
3
Lee
months,
was
or was it a year and a half? Well,
Yeah.
anyways, you got a borderline top 100 prospect, a left-handed hitting first baseman with a ton of raw power, and you got Blake Bevan, and ultimately that's a number 5 starter and a guy that was a solid, not spectacular first baseman for I think it was just 3 months of Cliff Lee, and I think that's a sound deal. And I think if Seattle wanted to do something similar by moving someone like a Brian Wu or a Bryce Miller for a Heston Kjerstad and a Joey Ortiz or something like that, I would be all for it.
Okay, I gotta listen to your podcast with about this Vladdy Guerrero.
I think we all do.
I am super interested in that.
It's called
scenario.
FSS.
My initial reaction was way negative, but you're turning me around on
Yeah,
it.
me too.
I don't think it's going to happen, and whoever does it would have to really, really overpay. But if you're Seattle, for example, and the cost was Bryce Miller and Ty France and Gabby Gonzalez, like, I think they probably listen. I don't know if it happens, but that's kind of where it has to start.
And those podcasts are on the futurestarsseries.com.
They're at you can find them at Apple, you can find them at Spotify, FSS Plus.
Great. And then you write as well. Where can people find you?
That's the Future Stars.
Futurestarsseries.com. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then also we can find you we can find you at various minor league ballparks, can't we?
You can. Yeah, you're probably going to see me at Everett a few times this upcoming year. Probably later in the year. I don't know if it might be a little bit of an anemic roster there in April and May, but yeah, you'll see me up there. You'll see me at Tacoma. You'll see me at T-Mobile. If you're ever at any of those ballparks, shoot me a text. I'll grab a beer with you. I do it a lot.
I love it. Finish the show off with this. Have you been to the Hillsborough Hop Stadium yet?
I have not been to the Hop Stadium, and I'd really like to make it down there this year. That's the Diamondbacks.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the former stomping grounds of Corbin Carroll, it might they might lose the team though.
Yeah,
that's a whole other topic.
I meant to get down there this past year to see Jordan Lawler before he got called up, but the Hops are a cool team.
The stadium's really nice, and I believe Everett's going to build a new stadium with the help of the city of Everett. And I hope the new stadium looks something like that, because it's really nice.
I wish the city of Everett had nothing to do with that. I think
John
Stanton should have to pay for that. No. I think
Mariners should kick in a big chunk.
Yeah, I mean, if the Seattle Mariners contractually own the Everett Aquasox and Modesto, it's no longer like these teams are no longer like private enterprises that have contracts with teams. Like the Mariners own the Aquasox, and I think if the Mariners are benefiting from the product that the Aquasox are putting out there every year, you should have to kick in for stadium renovations. But I gotta tell you, man, that stadium sucks. Like I really hope the renovations improve, because that stadium sucks. What is it, like 360 feet to center field? Like it's terrible.
Yeah, it's a weird field, and the facilities for the players is absolutely terrible. It's garbage.
The locker room.
Yeah, it's time for an update. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, other than the stadiums and obviously FutureStarSeries.com, we're heading towards the end of our show here, and I'm just curious, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me at mostly only Twitter, or X, I guess. It's Joe Doyle, MILB, and then I got to plug, like, if you're into the draft and if you're into prospects, my Patreon has been ripping for about a year and a half now. It's Overslot. It's patreon.com/overslot. And I'd love to have you subscribe and listen in over there. It's a weekly show that jumps into specifically prospects and college and high school baseball.
Excellent. And as you are accustomed to, we do a shout out at the end of the show every week. Do you have anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yep. Going to do a shout out to my little brother and his wife. They are expecting their first child this week. So I'm excited to meet little Liam.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Congratulations to them. And I'm going to give a big shout out to my friend Maria, who just connected with me on Facebook, and I hadn't seen her in years, and so it's great to have a connection back with her. How about you, Matt?
I'm going to give a shout out to my sister, whose birthday we celebrated just yesterday, and here's another year and being older than me.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us yet again on the Seattle Sports Union podcast, and keep in touch with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, or X, I guess it is now, at Seattle Sports Union as well. Check us out on our newly redesigned website at seattlesportsunion.com. Keep listening to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Captivate FM, and now on North Beach Community TV, Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. on Channel 68 on the Washington coast. Once again, we thank you, Joe Doyle, for joining us this week, and thank you to Brian, the Soulman Solak on the boards, and that damn dirty duck, Matt Page. On behalf of all those guys, my name is Abraham DeWeese, and we'll see you guys next time.